Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in on this eve of Christmas Eve. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. President Donald Trump announced a new fleet of ships yesterday, known as the Golden Fleet, as he revealed he approved plans for 2 new very large battleships. Speaking from his Mar-a-Lago estate, the president said the new ships would be, quote, 100 times more powerful than any battleship ever built. We have the details on this. Former MSNBC host Joy Reid doubled down on her attacks against Turning Point USA President Erika Kirk after Ms. Kirk's jabs at Reid during America Fest 2025 this past weekend. Someone needs to teach Ms. Reid the joy of the Christmas season. Arkansas Republican Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders is firing back at a legal group who took issue with her recent move to close state offices on Friday, December the 26th, to celebrate Christmas and give employees more time with their families. You're not going to believe the argument this group is making in opposing this extra day off. And South Carolina has a big race for governor brewing in 2026. The South Carolina Republican Party announced yesterday they will be partnering with Fox Carolina to televise several gubernatorial debates around the state next spring. Drew McKissick, chairman of the South Carolina GOP, joins us with the details in today's show.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Over the weekend, retired Navy SEAL Jason Redmond made a point on the Fox report that should not be overlooked. When it comes to the ambush that killed 2 U.S. service members and a civilian interpreter in the Middle East, there are a lot of players who could be responsible. So let's dig in here. That warning frames what we're seeing right now from the White House. Because while America is dealing with threats abroad from terror networks, hostile regimes, proxy militias, President Trump is making it clear he believes deterrence starts with strength, not hesitation. And that brings us to yesterday's announcement. He was at Mar-a-Lago, where President Trump unveiled plans for what he's calling a new Golden Fleet, including 2 brand new, very large battleships that would mark a dramatic shift in the U.S. naval strategy. Standing alongside Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and Navy Secretary John Phelan, the president did not mince words. He said our ships are aging, worn down, and in some cases obsolete. And frankly, based on other reports that you read, he's not wrong. The U.S. Navy hasn't built a true battleship since the mid-1990s. Meanwhile, our competitors, especially China, have been building at a pace that makes Washington's procurement timeline look like a joke. President Trump says these new ships, the so-called Trump class, including one dubbed the USS Defiant, would be unlike anything ever put out to sea. He described them as 100 times more powerful than any battleship ever built. Now, whether that's literal or rhetorical, the message is clear. Overwhelming force, visible force, and American industrial muscle is how you deter any potential attacks. Is how you get our foes' attention around the world. According to the president, the Navy will immediately begin procuring 2 of these ships, with plans to scale up to 10, then potentially as many as 20 to 25 total vessels. And here's the part that raised a few eyebrows inside the Pentagon. President Trump says he wants the first two operational within 2.5 years before he leaves office. That's lightning speed by modern defense standards. These ships would displace somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000 tons, serving as flagships of the fleet, massive surface platforms combining traditional Navy guns with modern missile systems. Trump made a point that will resonate with defense hawks. Gun-based firepower is cheaper and more sustainable than firing million-dollar missiles every time you want to project force. And the weapons loadout he described was straight out of science fiction about a decade ago. Not so much so anymore. He talked about hypersonic missiles, electric railguns, high-powered laser systems, nuclear-capable sea-launched cruise missiles currently under development. He layered in defensive systems designed to survive in modern missile-heavy combat environments. Now, critics immediately jumped to the conclusion that this is all about China. President Trump pushed back on that publicly. He said this isn't aimed at Beijing specifically. He said he gets along great with President Xi. He framed the new fleet as a counter to anybody, known or unknown, who might test American resolve. His phrase was simple: peace through strength, just like Ronald Reagan. That idea, of course, isn't new. Again, it's Reagan-era doctrine, updated for a world where threats come from nation-states, terror groups, cyber warfare, and drones now. But it does run against a long-standing debate inside defense circles. For years, the Pentagon has leaned towards submarines, unmanned systems, smaller distributed surface forces, partly because large surface ships are more visible and theoretically more vulnerable in modern warfare. The counter-argument, and the one that President Trump clearly believes, is that size still matters when it comes to ships, to warships. Big platforms bring endurance, command and control capability, massive firepower. They send a signal before a single shot is fired, the president believes. And if you think about Redmond's warning about the sheer number of hostile actors operating in the Middle East, that visibility may be the point. President Trump also tied this announcement to a much broader push, fixing America's broken defense industrial base. He said flat out that we make the best equipment in the world, but we don't make it fast enough. We don't do anything fast enough when it comes to the federal government, do we? It takes years and years to develop plans and then to put them into place and then to manufacture them. All the while, you got all these contractors lining their pockets. The president's not wrong there. The president said he plans to meet with major defense contractors next week, demanding faster delivery timelines. He wants new factories, more capital investment, and less money going to stock buybacks and executive bonuses. See there? The fat cats. They get rich on these types of contracts. That's a message Wall Street is probably not going to like. But the one that the military has been asking for quietly for years. President Trump even pointed back to World War II when America was producing ships at a rate of multiple hulls per day, something that seems almost unimaginable now. It's like they don't want to make them this quickly. Today, shipyards are struggling with workforce shortages. They have supply chain interruptions, aging infrastructure, endless redesigns amid construction. Navy leaders have admitted that shifting requirements and bureaucratic churn have helped drive massive delays and cost overruns from submarines to frigates to carriers. And all of this is happening while China's shipbuilding capacity dwarfs ours. No comparison. According to U.S. intelligence assessment, China has roughly 230 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States. 230 times the capacity. 230 times the capacity. I say it again. That's not a typo. Right now, the U.S. Navy operates about 294 warships, according to the report. China's already north of 370, the largest Navy in the world by sheer hull count, and it's still growing. Yes, the U.S. retains a technological edge in submarines and carrier operations, according to the report. But even that edge narrows when the other side can simply build faster and launch more quickly. That reality is why President Trump signed an executive order back in April declaring the erosion of America's shipbuilding workforce a national security risk. It created a White House-level effort to overhaul maritime industrial policy, stabilizing funding, rebuild the workforce, and counter China's dominance in global ship production. Inside the Navy, Secretary John Phelan has been pretty blunt. He told the service it must act like we're at war when it comes to shipbuilding and weapons production. And that's right. There has to be a sense of urgency. Why not? Why wouldn't we have that sense of urgency? He's launched a rapid capabilities office, Mr. Phelan has, aimed at cutting red tape, enforcing accountability, and pushing technology into the fleet faster than traditional Pentagon procurement allows. In other words, it's time to update the system. No reason to keep delaying things. Now, is the Trump-class battleship ambitious? Yes, it is. It's big, just like everything that Donald Trump tries to do. But is it possible? I mean, America is done pretending that weakness keeps the peace, right? Strength does. And whether these ships ultimately look exactly like the renderings behind the president or not, the strategic signal has already been sent to allies and to adversaries alike. We are seriously going to start building ships. The United States intends to rebuild, to rearm, and to remind the world that deterrence still flies the American flag. It's just that simple. If you're going to challenge us, you got to know that we're going to be ready to fight. That's the reason we renamed our military, the Pentagon, to the Department of War. Everyone says they'll start after the holidays, and that's exactly why most people never tackle those extra pounds at all. Joey Hudson here. Right now, PhD Weight Loss is making it easy to start before the new year with a bonus designed to get you moving now. They're adding 2 free weeks to your program. That means you can ramp up during the holidays and start the new year already working toward your goals. Those 2 free weeks mean you won't roll into January feeling behind. You'll hit January already losing, already feeling better, already in control. PhD's metabolic reset system teaches your body to burn fat first. No drugs, no starvation diets, no endless workouts, just a smarter science-based system that fits real life. And when you mention 2 weeks on the phone, they'll waive your consultation fee and pay for the cost of your food during the entire program. There's no reason to wait, no reason to repeat last year. Call PhD Weight Loss today and start 2026 already ahead. 864-644-1900. Call today. That's 864-644-1900. Or go to myphdweightloss.com. Don't wait. Do it today. As much as the left loves to hate Turning Point USA and everything that Charlie Kirk stands for, stood for, and now Erika Kirk is taking that up, they cannot ignore, they cannot quit Erika Kirk or Turning Point USA. They can't help themselves. Over the weekend, far-left podcaster, former MSNBC host Joy Reid doubled down on her attacks against Erika Kirk after being lightly and honestly, pretty politely mocked during America Fest 2025. When I say mocked, let's be clear what actually happened here. During her opening remarks at America Fest, Erika Kirk made a light joke, a joke. She said Joy Reid looked like she could use a really good hug and even joked about touching the back of her head. Now, that was a callback to Reid previously attacking Kirk for hugging Vice President J.D. Vance at a Turning Point event. You probably recall it was soon after Charlie's death when the vice president hugged Erika Kirk. And Erika, according to Joy Reid, kind of prolonged the hug a little bit too long. So Erika was just making light of that. She was just joking about it. That was the offense that now has Joy Reid standing on her head. There was no insults, no personal attacks, just a little humor. Well, Joy Reid isn't taking it that way. On her show, she unloaded, and this time she went far beyond political commentary. She's fixated on how Erika Kirk looks, describing her as very intimate with J.D. Vance, sneering about her, quote, saucy hot pants, and then pivoted into a lecture about race, about hair, about boundaries, while somehow managing to insult Kirk, Vance, Vance's wife, and conservative voters all in one breath. Typical the way Joy Reid can do that. Reid made it very clear she doesn't want a hug from Erika Kirk.
But the last thing I will say to Erika Kirk is this. Dear young lady, I don't need a hug from you. First of all, I would never let you get close enough to hug me because I don't trust you. And second of all, I don't know if anybody ever told you you're pretty young, but don't be offering to touch Black women's hair. We don't allow it. This is not the 19-teens. It's not the 1920s or the 1930s. You cannot come up to me, touch me, or touch my hair. It won't go. I don't allow it. So don't offer to do that because that's not going to happen.
Anybody following this? Wow. That's she continued to escalate this, saying again that she would not let Kirk get close because she said, I don't trust her, as you heard. Now, here's where things are a little interesting. Joy Reid framed this as standing up against racism. Now, how this whole thing became racial, I have no idea. But then, without missing a beat, Reid doubles down on one of the most racially charged comments she's made in recent memory. She repeated her claim that the ultimate MAGA fairy tale would be for J.D. Vance to leave his wife, whom she described as brown Hindu, and run off with a white queen like Erika Kirk. Wow. Joy Reid is a sicko, isn't she? She's accusing others of racism while reducing a sitting vice president's marriage to race and religion and suggesting his wife is a political inconvenience. And when that was criticized, Reid didn't walk it back. She said it's not her, that it's not her being racist, that it's MAGA. That's a familiar move. Accuse conservatives of racism like they always do, then justify saying things no conservative broadcaster would ever be allowed to say on air. But Reid didn't stop there. She went after Erika Kirk as a mother. She mocked her for working. She mocked her for being a single mom after the assassination of her husband, Charlie Kirk. And she argued that Kirk now has a problem because she has to explain to white Christian nationalists why she's working instead of staying home with her children. That's not an analysis. It wasn't commentary. It's just Joy Reid being cruel. This is where the mask really slips. Joy Reid claims to speak for women. She claims to stand for empathy. She claims to defend marginalized voices. She mentions the marginalized communities she represents often. Yet, when a conservative woman, a widow, let me remind you, steps into leadership, Joy Reid's response is to shame her, sexualize her, question her motherhood, and weaponize her grief, all while claiming moral superiority. Wow. And let's be honest here. If the roles were reversed, if a conservative commentator talked this way about a liberal woman, that person would be fired before the segment ended. No question. Now, let's zoom out for a moment here. Why is this happening? Because Erika Kirk represents something the left finds deeply threatening. She's young. She's very articulate. She's unapologetically Christian. She leads a massive grassroots organization that she and her husband built. And she's not afraid to last mile or hug people in public. Yes, she likes to hug people. And she's carrying forward the legacy of a movement even after her husband was just murdered a few months ago. That combination is driving the left, people like Joy Reid, absolutely mad. And it especially rattles media figures like Joy Reid, whose influence has steadily declined while organizations like Turning Point USA continue to grow. I promise you, Erika Kirk has a larger audience than Joy Reid does. And that's what really bothers Joy Reid, too. She is a has-been. When MSNBC showed her the door, her stock it tanked overnight. This isn't really about a hug. It's about power. It's about culture. It's about the fact that conservatives are no longer playing defense in spaces the left once controlled. Erika Kirk made a lighthearted joke on stage because she's been criticized. Joy Reid is the one who fired the first shot across the bow when she criticized Erika Kirk for hugging the vice president. in a very emotional moment. Erika Kirk can just laugh it off. Does it bother her? Probably so. I would imagine that it bothers her more than she's going to let us know. But still, she moves forward. She keeps going. And with all the things that Erika Kirk has to deal with, like the loss of her husband just a few months ago, like knowing that she's going to have to raise her children alone, like having to take over a massive organization like Turning Point USA literally overnight. Now, I'm sure she and Charlie had talked about things, but let's face it, they're both in their 30s. How serious were they, do you think, when they had those conversations about what if? Because when you're 30, you don't think you're going to die soon. Joy Reid responded to this joke on the stage with race baiting, personal attacks, and ideological scolding. That contrast tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? As far as these two women, when you compare these two women. One side is confident. Erika Kirk is confident enough in her position, in her stance, to laugh about things. The other side, Joy Reid, is so angry she can't see straight. She is so bitter for being booted out of MSNBC, for being marginalized. She hates where she is right now in life. And here's the takeaway. When the left tells you that they're about compassion and tolerance, dignity, watch what they do when they're challenged by someone that they can't cancel. Watch what they do when someone who really is about compassion and tolerance and dignity and respects other people's opinion and respects their place in this world, they're threatened. So what do? What does the Joy Reids of the world do? They mock, they demean, they attack families, they cross lines they swear that they'd never cross, and then they tell you that you're the problem. Then they throw out the race card. Then they get personal and they attack you personally. Because Joy Reid doesn't have an original thought in her mind. Joy Reid, let's just be honest here, probably would have never even been on MSNBC if it weren't for the color of her skin, because she's certainly not a smart woman. And she's trying to challenge Erika Kirk. She's trying to call Erika Kirk out. I can promise you, Joy Reid will never be the woman that Erika Kirk is at a very young age. On the text line, texter, this is George from New York State saying, Merry Christmas, Joey, to you and your family and your fine canines. Thank you. Jesse and Simon say thanks. Says, I appreciate very much your support for that small town in South Carolina that was supportive of the nativity scene. Amen and amen. God bless. Thank you, George. He's talking about the story from Mullen, South Carolina that I talked about yesterday, and the small town where they put up some volunteers, bought and paid themselves for Christmas decorations. They included Santas. They included Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and all the other Christmas things, but they also included a nativity scene. And the mayor tried to bully them into taking it down, claiming that it was a violation of the separation of church and state. They stood firm, have stood firm, and the nativity scene is still there. Thank you again, George. Merry Christmas to you. Chris says Trump definitely deserves to be up on Mount Rushmore. Look, I won't argue with you, Chris. I will not argue with you. We will see. Back to this story, though, from Mullen, South Carolina, because on this eve of Christmas Eve, as we are literally wrapping up here and heading into the celebration of the birth of Christ, the crazies are coming out of the woodwork. Again, this story from the mayor of Mullen, South Carolina, trying to force the removal of the town's nativity scene. There are stories all around the country of people being offended by the meaning of Christmas. They don't like the idea of what Christmas is really about. If you ever needed a reminder of just how far some activists are willing to go to scrub faith from the public life, look no further than what is happening in Arkansas. This week, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor, did something pretty radical, at least by Washington standards. She gave state employees in Arkansas the day off after Christmas, the 26th. That's it. December 26th, a long Christmas weekend, time with your family. Pretty normal stuff. But to the folks over at the Freedom from Religion Foundation, this was apparently a constitutional crisis. The group fired off a letter demanding that Governor Sanders reverse her decision, claiming that closing state offices in connection with Christmas violated the separation of church and state. Again, are you kidding me? So the governor decides to give her employees and the state employees an extra day to have a nice long weekend, and suddenly this is a violation of separation of church and state. So Governor Sanders, her response, short, clear, refreshingly honest. I will do no such thing, she said. That's how you respond. Sanders didn't hide behind legal jargon or talking points. She didn't issue some mushy clarification meant to appease activists who will never be appeased. Instead, she did something that's almost unheard of in modern politics. She just told the truth. She wrote that Christmas isn't just an end-of-the-year holiday with some vague secular flavor. It's not about trees, stockings, or wrapping paper. Christmas is the celebration of the birth of our Jesus Christ. Full stop. End of sentence. And Governor Sanders went further. She said that even if you wanted to be neutral on religion, that would be impossible because Christmas itself is inseparable from its Christian meaning. That's not an attack on anyone. That's just the reality of Christmas. Now, here's the part that really matters. The Freedom from Religion Foundation accused Governor Sanders of alienating non-Christians. But she pointed out that she received their letter while she was literally leaving a menorah lighting surrounded by Arkansas citizens of different faith. In other words, she's not excluding anyone. She simply is refusing to pretend that her own faith, her own Christianity, the faith that built much of this country, doesn't exist. And that's what drives these groups crazy, because this was never really about a day off. This was about power. It's about whether people of faith are allowed to speak plainly about what they believe, especially when they hold public office. For years now, we've been told that faith must be hidden, sanitized, reduced to generic holiday vibes so no one gets offended. But somehow, that rule only applies in one direction. We're allowed to celebrate Pride Month for 30 days. We're allowed to light up government buildings for every cause under the sun. We're allowed to acknowledge every belief system except Christianity. And when someone like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, refuses to play along, the lawsuits and the letters start flying. What Governor Sanders did was remind people that acknowledging faith is not the same thing as imposing, as enforcing faith on someone else. She's not forcing anyone to go to church in Arkansas. She wasn't mandating that someone pray. She wasn't even rewriting the Constitution, of course. She's honoring a holiday that millions of Americans will be celebrating and giving workers time to be with their families. And here's what really stood out in her response. She didn't end the letter with sarcasm or contempt. She ended it with grace, typical of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She told the critics that even if they entered the season with bitterness, Christ is with them, Christ loves them, and Christ died for their sins just the same. That's not government coercion. That's just Christian humility. That's Christian witness. That's what we were called to do. And you don't have to share her faith to understand the point. Public officials are human beings. They don't check their beliefs at the door when they're sworn into office. And the First Amendment was written to protect the free exercise of religion, not to erase it from public life. And that's what so many people get confused. This wasn't a legal argument from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. It was a cultural argument. They don't want Christianity acknowledged. They don't want it spoken. And they certainly don't want to defend it. But Governor Sanders, she didn't blink. And that matters, because every time an elected official stands up and says, no, we're not going to pretend Christmas is just a winter festival, it pushes back against this idea that faith must be hidden to be acceptable. You know, I really thought that we were going to get through this Christmas without some of these debates, because typically these things start earlier in the season. They've kind of started late. I mean, I just found out about the Mullen story just this week. Of course, it did kind of start early, didn't it? Because weeks ago we talked about Oregon having their Christmas tree lighting, but refused to say Christmas tree. They called it a tree lighting. Look, you can respect people of all beliefs and still say Merry Christmas. You can defend the Constitution and still honor our Christ. And you can lead a diverse state without surrendering your convictions to activist groups who don't speak for most of Americans, like the Freedom from Religion Foundation. To be clear here, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders didn't just close state offices on Friday. She opened the door to a conversation a lot of politicians are afraid to have. And for a lot of folks, especially this time of the year, that was a welcome sight, that we have a governor like Sarah Huckabee Sanders who doesn't hide from her faith and proudly says Christmas is about Christ. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, you know, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Well, Christmas week is here. We'll spend time with our family and friends this week and ring in the new year next week. And then it's off to the races of 2026. Joining us today on our guest line, Chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, Drew McKissick. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well this morning. How are you?
I am wonderful. Are you ready? Have you finished your Christmas shopping?
I have not, but don't tell my wife.
Yeah, well, you and I are in the same boat, so your secret is safe with me if mine is safe with you.
There you go.
Of course, 2026 going to be a big political year with all eyes on the midterm elections. The GOP hoping to maintain control of both U.S. House and U.S. Senate. Here in the Palmetto State, we have a governor's race with 5 candidates so far seeking the GOP nomination. You guys have just announced a series of debates next spring to be televised on Fox Carolina. What can you tell us about that?
Well, you know, we, as you know, we haven't had I guess what you would call a truly open governor's race here as Republicans in South Carolina, really since 2010. You know, obviously, I know when, previously back in 2018, Governor McMaster was governor. He had been elevated to governor 2 years prior. To that election cycle. And we did have a primary then, but it wasn't open. And so we want to make sure that Republicans in the state get the best, picture, if you will, of our nominees, our potential nominees, but also just voters around South Carolina who might consider the Republican Party, sometimes maybe even for the first time, and we want to make sure they get a good look at them. So we want to put an event together, or a series of events, so we can get as much exposure around the state as possible. We're going to be at coastal Carolina and Horry County, College of Charleston, then up at Wofford. And then if we have a runoff, which, with so many candidates, there's probably almost a certainty that we will, in the Newberry Opera House. We'll do one there. So working in conjunction with Gray Media, which has got a footprint all across South Carolina. They're in 7 media markets. So versus going the ETV route as we had in the past, I think this will give us more coverage and more exposure just to average South Carolinians, and that'll be good for the party.
Sure. Now, what will be the criteria? Anybody who has filed for the office?
Well, that hasn't been set yet. So our state executive committee passed a series of resolutions at this last meeting. One of the motions that we put into place was to create a debate committee, which will basically go over the fine print, if you will, of what the rules will be. Because at this point, it's really kind of early to set any criteria. Filing, as you know, is not for another 90 days.
Yeah.
We don't know if someone else may get in. But we'll probably, follow something similar to what the Republican National Committee has done in the past with presidential candidates in terms of qualifications. Filing, maybe potentially polling numbers if we have too many candidates, just because of the, constrictions on the stage. Getting more than a set number of candidates on the stage, depending on our venue, could be a problem. So, but I think if we stay probably where we are now, I think it would probably be all the candidates.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's going to be interesting to watch. Of course, that is one of a number of races that we will be watching next year.
Sure.
Congressional races around the state and across the country. Drew McKissick is my guest today. Mr. Chairman, for months now, Americans have been talking to pollsters about the same thing, and that's our economy. Life still feels expensive to them. Groceries costing more, housing feels out of reach for some, gas prices are starting to come down, and I got to believe, like always, when those energy prices come down, just as you and I have talked many times in the past, a lot of other things are going to come down too. President Trump is back out on the trail talking about some of the accomplishments of his administration and how that's going to lead to more affordable prices in a lot of different areas. And the data seems to be supporting that. Take-home pay is up. Inflation is coming down. Do you believe that this is happening fast enough to persuade voters to stick with the program for a while longer before making changes next year?
That's a good question. Let me answer it in about 10 or 12 months. Look, the reality is we are seeing inflation begin to come down. The numbers we saw this past week, I think, had annualized inflation rate at 2.7. Economists were predicting 3.1. It's the lowest number we've had since Joe Biden first came into office in 2021. Is it where we want it yet? No. Are we moving in the right direction? Yes. What about speed? As you point out, gas prices coming down. I filled up on the way to Florence day before yesterday at $2.25 a gallon. That's a big drop from where it was just a couple of months ago. All that kind of stuff filters through the economy. Of course, the thing you haven't been hearing a lot about is Trump administration continued regulation cuts. That helps the economy and filters through. You've got just a number of other things, including the things that were put in place in the big, beautiful bill. You have that stuff as well, which obviously we're not talking about now. And by the way, 250,000 fewer government workers, by the way, in the course of the last, I think 7 to 8 months, which is more or less strain on the economy, less people who are doing regulating, which might be a strain on the economy. And, of course, 2.5 million illegals have been deported. I think 600,000 by way of ICE, about 1.9 million have self-deported. That means more, native-born American workers have taken those jobs. That's good for Republicans in terms of the political coalition that the president's put together, because you have a lot of, blue-collar workers that are part of that coalition, and that's likely who has replaced illegal aliens in these jobs. That's good for the party. So signals are right. We just need continued momentum.
Yep. And the president also announced last week and over the weekend, others confirmed, Kevin Hassett, director of National Economic Council on NBC's Meet the Press yesterday, confirmed what the president said last week. We're going to see record refunds in tax season next year, with Americans putting, and the president said it could be $10,000 to $20,000 for some families. That's going to be huge too, because when you get a check like that and you put it in your pocket, you got to give credit where credit is due, and that's you got that check because of Donald Trump.
That's right, and a lot of that is going to be due to changes again that were made in the big beautiful bill.
Yep.
And when I went and had my taxes done, I guess about 6 weeks ago or something like that, a few days before the deadline, because we did the extension, and that was one of the things my account was going over that was going to be different for next year. And of course, that'll filter its way through the economy and through public opinion. I saw a poll this morning that had, I think Donald Trump was at, I think 8 points higher than he was at this point a month ago. Of course, a month ago, we were coming off the end of the shutdown business and so forth. So I think you're seeing a little bit of a return to normal with his poll numbers. That's good. So again, bit by bit, things are moving in the right direction. But, the election's a long way off.
Yes, it is, for sure. A lot to do, including Christmas this year coming up just in a couple of days. Hope you have a great one, Mr. Chairman, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, sir. You have a good one now. Take care.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.